First couple of questions I think relate to valuation. I know we talked about profit before, but if and you sort of think maybe Amazon managed to raise capital and keep going without making money, but even companies like Palantir and Sea Group, and the Palantir CEO basically saying they may never be profitable, but yet they're looking to do an IPO quite shortly. I
Yeah.
mean, how do you think about that, right? The unprofitable CEOs basically saying they might never be profitable, and yet they're worth billions and they're out to do an IPO.
Yeah. Again, I think it's thinking about, look, it depends on obviously the company, the industry, and the situation. But value isn't always profit. It really isn't, because especially in the tech space where there is an acquisition potential where you solve a key problem for a company. Okay. And so there's real value in that, because like very large companies that already generate lots of profit and cash, their biggest problem isn't, oh, how do I make another 5% more profit or 10% profit. Their bigger problem is, how do I future proof my business in this rapidly changing industry for the next 5 to 10 years? Like, if you solve that problem for them, you're worth a ton. Okay, so that's where you may not be profitable, but you've grabbed that position, and that, like the way that WhatsApp grabbed that position for Facebook. WhatsApp could have been making $300 million, $500 million. If they didn't have that position that Facebook needed, they wouldn't be worth anywhere near what they paid for it. So I think you have to also look at, where does it fit in terms of what is it valued to the industry, and that's a huge thing in this space. So I would say that's what you have to look for. But of course, there's also stupid valuations. So I'm not defending all the valuations out there. And at some point, especially if you are worried about raising capital, yeah, you need to find a sustainable business model, obviously, at some point.
Great. Okay, next question. What are some of the major trends to look out for that would make or break a unicorn? For example, Airbnb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is the leadership. If we're talking about like breaking a unicorn, or I would say if you see, like, you think they've taken a massive wrong turn, I think yeah, I think that can be a major problem for unicorn, in terms of like trying to pivot into something. And I'll readily, let me discuss one thing where I was wrong, and I thought it was a huge mistake. Like, and in the end, they did okay. Like Snapchat that we showed earlier, a couple years ago, they started developing these AR glasses that they still have, and they're still developing. And they thought they're going to get everyone to wear these glasses, and they're going to be, Snapchatting using their glasses. And I thought they looked pretty dumb, and actually they didn't take up very well, and they spent a ton of money on it. And then there was one point I was like, you know what? I think this is like just bad decision making, Now, somehow, I don't think they're still doing that great, those glasses, but they've kind of managed their way through it, and they've, on other sides, been able to do really well. And I was actually proven wrong. Let's say they're not doing, Snapchat's doing better than ever right now, despite that early, what I thought was a mistake, But I think, yeah, if you see a major mistake in direction, that can be a real problem, for business. Yeah, so I think it's that will really break a business for me, or just like crazy out of control spending. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm all for spending if it's building long-term advantages, but if it's I think some companies, when they're growing really quickly and there's like a laziness, and they're just spending money like crazy without really thinking about expenses. And yeah, when the money when the money, capital raising, money tap stops, they're caught, So yeah, that's the other thing.
But that is company specific, right? Those are very company specific issue, management related
Yeah.
issues. Uh, and I suppose the question is by definition a unicorn actually quite wedged into their sector, or in the right direction, such that from it's quite I mean the sector is not going to sectorally shift away from the unicorn, right? And usually it is maybe a misstep or two by the management team, or a misread of a situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the thing is that, things change quickly. So yeah, and oh, another thing to look at is sometimes, unicorns are, so one is that things change quickly. So even if they're doing well now, I think this is where the management is really important in these companies, because like you know, 2-3 year view, things can change dramatically, and companies that are doing really well can suddenly do badly if they didn't focus on what they do, you know, and do best. A big problem, a lot of companies, especially once they raise tons of money, they kind of spend it on like too many things, you know, and they don't stay focused on the core, the like different, you know, the core value that they deliver. So that could be one thing. Yeah. But yeah, I think those, yeah, that's, so I think it's still something to look out for is that really, are they, if you think they're making a big mistake and what they're doing or missing something, yeah, it's because you have no ability to change their direction, and they may not realize it for 3 to 5 years.
So which specific unicorns are you watching closely, and why?
I think, well, in this part of the world, yeah, I mean, definitely, I think, you know, Grab and Gojek, really interesting. Yeah, because it just, I mean, I'm still interested to see how this whole super app status evolves in Southeast Asia. I'm still of two camps, to be honest. Like I'm like a pretty big believer in like really focused tech companies that just don't over diversify, but I have to admit it's working really well for Grab and Gojek. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out. In the and then the other one is, I guess, I'm really interested on the digital banking space. Yeah, and just seeing just in different parts of the world. It's like it's actually listed, but you know, it's Square in the U.S. and like in this COVID situation, they've just transformed into like a digital bank very rapidly. So I think there's an opportunity for a lot of fintech businesses, even in the private space, to very quickly become digital banks if they want to be. So I think that's another interesting space to look at.